Chapter 65. God is searching for someone to stand in the gap, someone whose heart is fully His. Will you be that one? Or will you walk in rebellion like the rest? The Bible says in verse 1 that God looked for someone among the people who would stand in the gap, someone to bear the burden and intercede for the land. But He found no one. Again, in verse 2, it tells us that He stretched out His hands toward a disobedient people, a people walking in ways that were not good, following only their own thoughts. The Bible says in verse 3 that these people continually provoked God to anger. They offered sacrifices and burned incense on their own altars, yet their hearts were far from Him. In verse 4, it says they lingered among graves, hid in secret places, and indulged in sinful practices, even thinking themselves holier than others. Again, in verse 5, the Bible says that God saw them as smoke in His nose, a fire that burned all day because of their hypocrisy. But in verse 6, He declares that He will not remain silent. He will bring recompense to everyone according to their deeds. The Bible says in verse 7 that the sins of the people and even the sins of their ancestors will be measured by God, because they turned away from Him and blasphemed His name. Yet in verse 8, the Lord shows mercy, saying that He will preserve His faithful servants, like someone finding new wine in a cluster and refusing to destroy it because there is blessing in it. The Bible says in verse 9 that He will bring forth a remnant, descendants of Jacob and Judah, and His chosen shall inherit His promises. His faithful servants shall dwell in the blessings He has prepared. But in verse 11, the Bible says that those who forsake the Lord, forget His holy mountain, and serve idols will face judgment. In verse 12, it reminds us that when God called, they did not answer. When He spoke, they did not listen, but chose evil instead. Again, in verse 13, the Bible says that His servants shall eat and be satisfied, drink and be quenched, and rejoice, while the rebellious shall hunger and thirst. In verse 14, it says that His servants shall sing for joy, while others cry and wail in sorrow. The Bible says in verse 15 that God will give His servants a new name, while those who rejected Him leave their names as a curse.